forgot to record. So if my base is 4.5, do we have a side perpendicular to that? No. Perpendicular to the 4.5 would be something like this, and we don't know that length, okay? So we're not going to use the 4.5. Instead, we're going to use the 5 as our base. So then what is your height? The 4. What is perpendicular to it, right? These two are perpendicular. So if I'm finding the area of this parallelogram, I'm going base times height, which is 5 times 4. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm super picky about in this chapter is how you label things. What does this equal?
5.4 from?
5 times 4.
Wait, why wouldn't we just put 20?
It is. That's what we're going to do. But how do you label it? 20 what?
20 inches.
It's area. Inches times inches is what? Inches squared, right? Every time you label area, your units should be squared because you're saying inches times inches. Anything times itself is that thing squared, right? So 20 square inches is the area of that parallelogram. Okay? Go over to letter B.
Wait, will we do that for centimeters too?
Yeah, all units should be centimeters squared, inches squared, feet squared. If you're finding an area, it's always going to be squared. Okay, look at letter B. Name that figure. Is that a rectangle, a parallelogram? What is it?
That's a
Parallelogram?
That's a parallelogram. Right? A rectangle has to have all right angles, and this doesn't have all right angles. So this is a parallelogram, okay? What did I say about what B has to be? The letter B, the variable B. It has to be what?
not perpendicular.
Not perpendicular. It has to be a side of the figure, okay? It has to be, do you know what I mean by that? These are the sides of the figure, right? This, and this, and this, and this. So your B has to be one of those 4 lengths. Your H has to be perpendicular to one of those lengths. Forrest Truitt. Excuse me. My turn. Right. I didn't ask you to ask questions. I asked you to pay attention to this. So if you look at what is perpendicular, look for the right angle, right? Here's your right angle. That means this right here, 3.5, is perpendicular to something. What is it perpendicular to?
The other side.
Which side?
Well, that I don't know.
It's not the 4.6. Think about it this way. This 2, they're just extending that, right? That's where the right angle happens. So the extension of the 2 is perpendicular to the 3.5. So what is your B? Which side of your figure are you using? 2. This is your base. And what is your height? What's perpendicular to that?
3.5.
The 3.5. So if I want the area of this figure, it's 2 times 3.5 or 7, what?
Inches square.
Centimeters squared.
Wait, is it
7.
2 times 3.5?
Yeah.
Sounds like a goat.
Okay.
Maybe because
Okay, I'm going to draw you another one because I don't feel like we're quite there yet.
We are. We're there.
Could I ask like a non-related math question? Or should I wait till...
It is a math question?
No, it's actually not related to math.
Oh, ask me later.
Okay.
I want to.
Okay, so let's say, name this figure. What is this?
That's us.
Rectangle.
Oh God.
It's a rectangle. Okay, and we said the formula for the area of a rectangle is base times height, right? So let's say you have 7 and 24 and 25, okay?
We're gonna find out for us.
What are you using to find the area of this rectangle? What is your base and what is your height?
Base is
The base is
7 and 24, right? You need whatever is perpendicular. So your base has to be a side of the figure. Okay, so we'll call this B for now. You could use 7 as B because they're both sides that are perpendicular. Perpendicular to that is the 7. Oftentimes there is a number that you're not using. Okay, they're just putting it in there to throw you off. Don't let them throw you off. Find the two that are perpendicular and multiply them together. So area equals 24 times 7. And if you multiply that, I don't have a calculator. Does anyone have a calculator handy?
Honestly, called the game.
Why do the voices lie to me?
168. So this would be 168. Okay. If ever they don't give you units, you're just going to label it UN for units squared. Okay. If they don't tell you inches or centimeters or feet, just put UN for units. Good on that?
Yep.
Wait, what?
So base times height,
Oh, you just.
right? Base has to be a side of the figure. Height has to be
No,
perpendicular
like the
to
straight
that.
line, it would never be like the vertical, not vertical, diagonal line.
It can be the diagonal line if that diagonal line is perpendicular to a base.
It's not.
Like if you had this, that's a diagonal line, or if you had, here, this is a better version of it.
Are you saying that's,
Let's say you have this,
that is not it. But obviously that's
right?
not-
This would be, like in that
Obviously that's not
picture,
my head,
this is your base, and perpendicular to it is your height.
Okay. What is that?
Okay, take a look at this, because this one's different now. This one says,
but- Oh, the voices.
find DE. Here's DE, okay? Go ahead and just call that X for now.
Can you, like, to make it easier, can you call it DE? Oh. Like, I'm not
I
asking
think
you two personally, I'm just like.
You may. Do you think that's easier than X? I
Yeah,
called it X
because
because I
now
think
I
X
remember
is
that
easier. Because now it's just solve for X, right? The length of DE is X.
Yes.
But yeah, if you want to call it DE, you can. But don't turn that into two separate things. It's the segment DE you're trying to find the length of.
Okay.
How would we solve for that?
Yes, how would you? This one's different.
Whoa.
Don't.
I mean, E is 9.4.
This is pretty just.
AB is 9.4. This whole side is 9.4. Okay, so here's what I want you to think about. I'm going to go with blue right now. I want a base and a height that are associated with each other. So if 9.4 is my base, which height goes with that 9.4?
13 inches.
Not
9
13.
inches.
It has to be what? What's perpendicular to 9.4?
X.
The X. Okay? So right now, as we're looking at it, 9.4 times X will get you your area, right? Area is base times height. So 9.4 times the height of X will get you the area. But we don't know what X is, and we don't know the area. Look at the 13. What if 13 was my base? What would have to be the height?
9.4.
Not 9.4.
No.
What's perpendicular? It's the 9. Do you see it? This 9 is perpendicular to the 13, right? So that's what you have to be able to see, is what's perpendicular. If this is my base, then 9 is my height, which means we can actually find the area of this parallelogram, right? The area is going to be 13 times what? Times 9, right? 13 times 9 is base times height. So plug that in. 13 times 9 is 117. And it's an area, so it's 117 square inches. Did they ask you to find the area of the parallelogram?
No.
No, what'd they ask you for?
X.
Whatever X is. X is a height. Now, tell me this.
Oh, so it's also equal to 117.
There you go. Right? If I know a base and a height, okay, the area didn't change because I used a different base and height, right? The area of that figure is still the area of that figure. So if I'm using a new base and height, which is this, it's still got to equal the 117 area that we found. So you
13.
say 117
So it's 13.
equals 9.4 times x, right? Because my area using the purple, or what was the blue,
Wait, why can't you just
would be
divide
9.4 times x.
117 by like 9.4?
That's what you're going to do.
Oh.
So to solve for x here, you're going to divide by 9.4 on both sides. So 117 divided by 9.4, that means x, or DE, the thing they asked you to find, to the nearest tenth. How many decimal places is nearest tenth?
One.
1 decimal point.
Wait, I have a question.
So 12.4, and this is just inches because it's not an area, it's a length, right? How long is that? It's 12.4 inches. Yeah.
It's like a
If
foot.
you did, you see where the A, 13 times 9?
Mm-hmm.
If you use 9 right there to get 117, then why would you divide 117 by 9.4 and not 9?
Well, because if you divided by 9, you would just get this base back, right? We want the other base and height relationship. So, hey, excuse me. So this base goes with this height, right? So 13 times 9 is the area. Or this base goes with this height. So 9.4 times x is the area. We know what the area is, right? The area is what we solved for, that 117. So now we're saying the other base and height, 9.4 times x, should still equal that 117. So we have to divide by that 9.4 to figure out that missing piece. Okay?
What does that mean?
Okay, I'm going to do one more of those for you. Let's say,
What?
let's say this is 12.
The second one. I watched that when it first came out.
This is
Give
8.
me a second
So
one.
bad.
It's
Yeah, they made a second one. It came out in 2020.
Oh, really?
You know, they made a second. No, wait. They made a second. Have you seen R.I.P.D.?
What is
Ryan
that?
Reynolds.
Okay, take a look at
It's
this.
sequel without Ryan Reynolds.
Oh.
I want to know, gentlemen, I want to know what x is. Okay, I want to find, that's a height of the parallelogram. Your job is figure out what base and height go together. So let's just start with the number, well, you tell me, which base do you want to start with? 12. Okay, so if we start here, if this is my base, what height goes with that base?
7.
The 7, perpendicular, right? This is perpendicular. So this would be your height. So can you find the area of this parallelogram for me?
Yes.
What? How? 12 times 7. Base
84.
times height, which is 84 square units. Okay, so that's the area of this figure. What other base and height go together?
8
8
and
and 12.
X.
8
Oh, 8.
and x, right? You have this base, and it is perpendicular to this height. So if this is our base, and this is our height, then 8 times x should equal our area. Right? Do you know the area of this parallelogram?
84.
It's 84. So you would say 8x equals that same area, 84, and then you would divide. 84 divided by 8 is 10.5. So that means 10.5 units is the length of our x. Okay, so you have to find the two that are perpendicular and multiply them every time. Good?
Yes.